Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me on my podcast, Swiping Over 40, Online Dating for Mature Women. So all you ladies over 40 years old that are looking for love the first time around, or maybe it's the second or third time around, join in on our podcast as I interview all different types of men from all walks of life who give advice on dating, how to navigate the internet dating process, things that men are looking for. We share stories, looking really forward to sharing all this valuable information with you and helping you find love the first, second, or even third time around. As I promised, all you viewers out there, ladies, the single Kevin West, actor, entrepreneur, speaker, author, is joining us once again today to talk about dating over 40, or just dating in general, really. So last time we left off, how are you, Kevin? And welcome to the show.
I am solid. Thank you, Kathlyn. I'm good.
You're welcome. And thank you for coming back. So happy to have you.
My pleasure.
Today, we are going to circle back to our last conversation. We left off and decided that was for the next conversation. So here we are. We're talking about dating. Kevin has an up and coming book in regards to dating. What is the name of your book, Kevin?
My book is called Caveman and Cinderella.
Caveman and Cinderella. Love the title.
Thank you.
I have a book coming up as well, Dating in a Fast Food World, A Girlfriend's Guide to Internet Dating, She Says, He Says, and what better forum than to have the She Says, He Says. Today, we are going to talk about the topic we left off with was double standards. Kevin, is there a double standard when a woman may sleep with, generally speaking, and then your opinion, when a woman sleeps with a man, has sex with a man on a first date? Is there, generally speaking, would you say there's a double standard? It's okay for men and not women?
Of course there is. Always has been, always will be. I don't think you'll ever get rid of it. It's unfortunate, but that's just goes to one of my favorite old cliches of youth is wasted on the young. Because of the way that we grow up. Again, one of the things that I left you with last time, which is one of the things that's in my book, is that men push women physically and women push men emotionally. And that's just the difference in how we're built. And again, everything I say almost, Kathlyn, is with a high percentage. Again, it's another phrase of mine, high percentage generalization. I don't speak 100 or 0% for any human being, because who knows? There's always a wrinkle with a thing of someone being different. But yeah, there's always been a double standard. There always will be. What percentage of it, how much of it is, how much that exists inside of a human being, how much who you are can change that in a given moment. That's hard to say, but unfortunately, yes, men are between allowed and or cheered for how many sexual partners they have and how many stories they have to tell. And women, if too much is known by lack of discretion or because their friends run their mouth or whatever, can be in certain circles, especially closed circles, small towns, small social arenas, can unequivocally be tagged, as you can be in high school, for being loose. That's the phrase, of course, that we used when I was in school, and it still gets used to this day. So there's absolutely a double standard, and it's completely unfair as far as I'm concerned.
So why do you think that is?
Psychologically, it is because of how we're wired. A great deal of it has to do with religion. Sorry, it does. And a lot of it also has to do with, here comes the phrase, the mother of my children. And,
okay.
because procreation and marriage, and you have to understand that marriage didn't even exist. Marriage was invented. If you look at the history of marriage, the concept of the contract of marriage was invented because of religion. And also there was a time when procreation was literally the ability to have enough workers that you could farm the field. Globally, this isn't just something for the United States of America, it's long before that. So there's a couple of factors that have led us down the road of, will she make a good mom? And do you want your mom to be the woman who ran around a lot? That's where a lot of this BS comes from, in my opinion.
So let me ask you a question about that. I guess I can understand that to some extent. because as a woman, I would say I would feel the same about the man. Do I want to marry and have kids with the man that's been around the block multiple times? I would rethink it. But what about the second time around? Meaning, what about those women that have had their kids and their kids may be grown, or they're divorced, or maybe they're widowed, or maybe they've never been married and they're over 40 and they've they want a relationship, but they don't want to have children. Does the same double standard exist when you hit those latter years in life?
I think it only exists relative to your peer group, relative to your social circumstance and your social surrounding. Again, Kathlyn, I don't know where you grew up, but I grew up in a really, really, really rural part of Tennessee, and then eventually expanded out a little bit to that area. But having lived in California now for over 3 decades, actually more than half my life by far, I can tell you that there was a movie once done a long time ago with Minnie Driver called Circle of Friends. Now, this doesn't mean that movie applies to this conversation. I'm using the title. So your circle of friends, be that work colleagues, be that the group you play bridge with, the group you play golf with, the neighborhoods you live in. Most of America, I say this all the time to people who live out here when having political conversations. I'm like, yeah, you haven't spent enough time out in America, because Los Angeles and New York is not all of America. So in those certain areas, yes, I do believe that, unfortunately, as much as it shouldn't be the case, it still can apply based on the mentality of your circle of friends.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, for the record, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. However, my parents are from a very small town in the Midwest. And so I was raised I was raised by my parents with those Midwestern small town values, morals. However, I had external influences from my circle of friends, so to speak. Right. And let me ask you a question.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
I'm going to point blank ask you a question, Kathy.
You can ask me whatever you want, love. I'm an open book.
You're over 50, although, ladies, he doesn't look it. We all know that.
That is so painful. Hang on a second. I got to adjust my seat. Oh, God.
Get the good side, right? And so let's say now, in your over 50s, and you're probably, I would assume, you're not looking to have kids, maybe looking for marriage, but not for kids. Or maybe you are looking to have children. I don't know. But it
depends on too many different things. I have a philosophy about some of those, all of the stuff that comes behind looking for. So I will set that aside and go ahead and ask the question.
Okay, yeah. So I would say maybe even open to is a better phrase.
I think the concept of versus the checkbox is a much better way to go from age 18 on, personally. But
yeah, no, I agree. And so over 50, a man over 50.
Yes,
on the dating market, so to speak, meaning you're available and
I am single. Yes,
you're single, so you're open to opportunities. So you meet somebody, you meet a woman, and you really hit it off. Maybe you meet her online, maybe you meet her in the grocery store, grabbing a cup of coffee, but you meet her, and you decide to go out.
Mm-hmm.
You do a meet. Your first meet, or maybe because
Well, if it's online and it's meeting, but the bottom line is, if you want to arrive in the question at just the first date, that would be, yes, it's a mutually agreed we're going on a date.
First date. So first date. Mutually agreed upon you're going on a first date. And that woman and you are really hitting it off. You're super attractive. The conversation is flowing. And it's an intellectual conversation. You're stimulated intellectually. You're stimulated, spiritually, maybe, and you're very attracted to that woman. And you decide the two of you decide as adults, you make a decision that you're going to, go home, hang out. You're going to get naked, and you're going to, whatever you want to call it. No bad words.
I just call it having sex. That's what I call it.
Yeah, you're gonna you end up having sex.
I don't overthink the simple stuff. Sex is really simple.
Okay, so you end up having sex. Okay, you and this woman end up having sex.
Yes.
how you personally, I'm going to ask you personally, and then maybe you can give me a generalization. Has she changed? Has anything changed in your thought process about her? Even if you think, oh, she says, I never do this, and maybe she never does.
I've heard that 35 times in my life.
And maybe 35 times it's the truth.
I'm not, and see, that's just it, Kathlyn, is that I don't judge that. This is why I don't fall into the same category with a lot of men. I just don't. I'm not going to disagree with you that the reason I have to be careful about saying maybe it was the truth is there's a lot of times where that could be taken by a male or a female as being arrogant. I don't know how many times it was true for me. I don't know, because it's viewed sometimes by women as, oh, he thinks he's special, or he thinks he's all that, when you go, well, she didn't do it with everybody else, but she did that with me in that circumstance. And so I'm careful about how that answer is viewed.
Right.
But whether it was true or not, it doesn't really matter, because again, some things just are what they are. And so me personally, no, I have never chosen to view someone based on how the length of time of knowing me and the length in that time frame of choosing to be physically intimate with me, no matter where the location is. I don't choose to judge somebody by that decision that she makes. You guys control that decision 100%. All we can do is try to influence it. Anything else that's not your decision is a crime. I don't care where and when it happens. Don't get me started on that, because I'll lose my mind. But no, but but like I said, that's me. I told you a story last time that I got intimate with a woman 5 hours after I met her. I can't say that that was the first time that happened. And I dated her on and off for 5.5 years. She's still a friend of mine to this day. She's married with a kid, and I actually mentor her kid. She lives about 8 miles from me in Los Angeles. She was my first. Yeah. So I don't, but I'm not like a lot of men that way.
So what you're saying is that it doesn't change your opinion of that woman. She doesn't go up a notch, down a notch. She just status quo. Okay.
No, because to me it's the quality. To me, you have two things that should affect this. You have the quality of chemistry that can lead to physical intimacy quickly, and then you have quality of connection that leads to the possibility of the future. And we conflate the two. Again, and you have to understand what came first, the chicken or the egg. So because society judges you guys for getting naked with somebody, there's this inherently built-in thing from religion to your parents to your circle of friends that if you chose to quote unquote give that to him, it's a phrase I can't stand personally. It's an adult decision. And even, if a kid can go off to Ward 18 and lose his life, then it's an adult decision. If it's a mutual decision, then there's an obligation inside of us sometimes, especially from the female side, to then feel that you have to move forward with that in some way. And that if you don't, it makes you a bad person. And if he doesn't, he's an a-hole. And so this is the dynamic that starts for us very early in life, high school on. And we never recover from it. And we make horrible decisions in general because of it. Judgment of others.
That's pretty powerful. And I have to share that I've talked to a lot of men, and ladies, believe it or not, they view this similar to how Kevin views it. I feel sometimes it's more a couple of things. One is that you said that we as women tend to feel a little bit emotionally bonded, maybe after having sex with someone.
Sure. That's a physiological fact.
Yeah, it is. It's it's the hormones. And so we expect that phone call, then we start having expectations. And whenever there's expectations, I feel that there could be misunderstandings. And another is I feel that women judge each other far more than a man would judge for that same situation. At our age, I would say we've all been in that position a time or two, or how many times we've been in that position.
Personally, I hope so. I think it makes us better people.
Yeah. So what I've learned personally, what I'm telling the viewers is what Kevin said isn't far-fetched from all the men that I have interviewed, because I will tell you 100% across the board, every man that I've talked to while doing my research, so to speak, for this book has the same view that you have, Kevin, which is really interesting. And yeah, they're all over 40, everyone that I've spoken with, but they still don't have that maybe Madonna syndrome, oh, she's going to be my mom. They just take it one day at a time. It's when the expectations are attached that they start to pull back. But for women, I've learned, I don't kiss and tell for the most part with my girlfriends, because if I choose to do something, I'm not in high school. I don't need to run back and tell my girlfriends what I did, because they will be the first ones to judge. Oh, he won't call you again. And some of that's based on personal experiences, but then you really have to take a look at yourself. Was it the experiences, or was it your reaction and expectation based on the experience? Were you expecting someone to call? Were you reacting to the situation? Were you maybe even, putting a label, so to speak, on the two of you just after one encounter or two encounters? And again, men and women are very different animals for the most part, generally speaking. Not that they both don't love to be, have sex together and everything else. But again, women get very emotionally attached, generally speaking. And men, it takes some time. And another question in regards to that I have for you, there's this book.
I have a whole bunch to that if you want to hear it.
Oh, I do.
What you said was, you wrapped up a lot in that.
I did. Well, I'll stop and you go. And then we'll move forward if I remember what I was going to ask.
Well, first and foremost, there's a difference between expectation and hope. And there's also the difference of, somebody having mutual attraction to you and not. A lot of us, when we like somebody, you can hope for something. But what happens is the expectation, to me, happens more inside of women because of the judgment of the circle of friends. The circle of friends is just a metaphor for me for anybody who's going to judge you for doing what you do. That's just standard statement by Kevin. Who is going to think poorly of you or think lesser of you? So I oftentimes wonder whether or not women are pushed and obligated into seeing somebody a second or third time simply because they're more afraid of what their friends might think of them or their circle of friends or their family than they are interested in the man. This has led to many, many, many unwanted pregnancies and many bad marriages, in my opinion. So that's the first problem. Sure, we can all hope if there was a connection that's beyond physical that somebody calls or that somebody is interested in you, but they made movies called He's Just Not That Into You. I mean, they made this for a reason. Sometimes she's not that into you. Same thing has happened for me. I've had 3 vastly long-term relationships that would be, divorces. And I left one person and 2 people left me. So, if you've done this long enough, and even when you're young, it's no fun either way. And it's no fun when someone doesn't want you. But the question is, the thing I will always be trying to drive down to with somebody is, what's running your emotion? Because the expectations a lot of times have to do with age. It has to do with procreation. It has to do with being married. It has to do with all of the societal checkboxes, coupled with a fear of being judged by your circle of friends. I got bad news for you, Kathlyn. That's a really powerful cocktail the morning after. And the bottom line is that when it's from I don't make promises I don't keep. I try to be as in 4 agreements. Remember, be impeccable with your word is the first one. So oftentimes I am not going to project out and pretend that something is what it is or isn't, because I think there is a drastic big difference between a chemistry connection that's short term versus the other things that have to do with intellectual or ideological or other forms of connection that lead it as a possibility to becoming actually some kind of a relationship. This gal that I spoke of, who was my first real adult long-time relationship, after seeing her for about the 3rd or 4th time, and she was working actually in Mexico at the time out of LA, so she lived about a 3.5 hour drive from me. And after about coming up on the weekend and seeing me for about, I can't remember what was the 4th weekend or the 5th weekend, as I was walking to her car, and she's, this big, she was 5'1" nothing. She turned around in the car and she said, "So what is this? Just nice screwing you or what?" And I loved it because she was really direct about it.
Right.
And she wasn't mad, she wasn't upset, and she wasn't being a jerk. She just at that point was like, "Listen, I like you and I'm cool with walking, but what are we doing?" And I wound up being with her for off and on for 5.5 years. But I think that unfortunately a lot of times we as people, from the female side of things, are just not choosing to be in control of what you want. And there's too many outside influences that I think are very unfair to your gender that wind up affecting a lot of people going down a road that, quite frankly, they know in their heart of hearts they don't want to go down, and yet they go down them anyway.
Well, I agree with that. And you talk about the influences, religion, what have you, based on how you think certain ways. And maybe as strong or even stronger is, those societal influences.
Oh, sure.
A lot of books, women like to read books on what a man wants, written by a woman, right? This is why I'm incorporating a man into everything I do, because I am not the expert of a man. I'm not one. And there was a book written, and it was a great book. It was a really good book. However, maybe you've heard of it. I won't say the name of it. It talked about how men like the chase, that innately they like to chase, and they made an analogy. For instance, if a man were to go out deer hunting, he plans a trip, he spends a year, buys all the equipment, gets the bullets, sits in the tree forever, gets his kill, his deer, brings it, has it, the head cut off and hanging on the wall, and it's in the center of the kitchen table, so the dining room table or the living room, because they're so proud of that deer that they caught. The same man, if there was a dead deer on the porch or they hit one on the road, they just call animal control or drive around it and have it hauled away. And this is what this book said. That is how men are with women. They have to value you. They have to put the work in before you, give up the cookie or whatever you want to call it, have sex. Or even, not even sex. Let's not even take it to a sex level. Let's just take it to an interest level. Personally, I think there's a little bit of reality to that. You don't want to be desperate. However, it's okay to just be okay and have a conversation with somebody and let it flow how it flows and not play any games. To me, when you're trying to be different than who you are, you're not even being honest if that's not who you are.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I don't think that I've never held this maxim, and I understand that it's coming from the perspective of a man, but I've tried to already today, Kathlyn, express the reasons why I feel strongly about why what I'm about to say doesn't apply, because, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Self-judgment, judgment of circle of friends, all of those things are what drive this. But the concept, just if you stop for a moment and grasp the concept that in some way, a day or two or three, and withholding sex from a man somehow makes you attractive for 25 years down the road in a relationship, is probably one of the most absurd constructs I've ever heard in my life. That is literally and utterly absurd. That and look at all, and again, a lot of what you talk about, Kathlyn, is second time around. So how many women out there that are seeing this, or how many women do you know played that exact game? Oh, well, I can't give it up yet. I can't give it up yet. I can't give it up yet. And they got a divorce anyway. So I'm not telling you it's always BS. I'm going to tell you that a high percentage of the time that's absolute horse manure, because people are human beings. This isn't a sport. And even because of course, people talk about sport, effing. Even if someone treats it that way, the man more often than the woman, but I certainly have encountered women who have moments and times in their life, or some women who are just a little more wired like men, that can also do the same thing, because you guys control sex. But to believe somehow in a moment or within a day or 72 hours or whatever rule you want to come up with, some stupid book somebody wrote in the last 25 years, that you withholding sex for another 3 days is somehow going to guarantee the health of a relationship with this human being 20 some years down the road, even at 50, is absurd. And our human beings have been working off of that premise for a long, long time. And I got news for you. I have enough data now at this point. It doesn't work.
Well, okay. Well, you know what? I'm in agreement with you, and this is why I have my book, because the rules have changed. Those aren't the rules. It's like you're saying. Every single man that I've talked to, Kevin, everyone I've talked to has the same, maybe not
I
exact.
don't think they were ever any different.
The same
Honestly, I don't think they've changed. I just think that we put up with misery a lot more 100 and 200 years ago. I think society and the construct has changed. Puppy dog. Who loves a
Well, it's
puppy?
COVID-19. We're inside. Dogs
Yeah.
inside. We're all
Who
inside.
loves a puppy? So I don't believe the human condition actually has evolved that much. We're still killing each other over God. So I don't believe human beings have actually evolved that far. Or we're certainly right now going through Black Lives Matter. So, but I just think that I understand why the construct exists, and I understand why women do it. But it's never guaranteed a healthy relationship ever to me.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you clarifying that. And again, every man that I talk to in regards to my book has the same opinion that you do. So ladies, figure out where that came from, erase it from your brain, and maybe think for yourself, and don't worry so much about it's just like having an ulterior motive, so to speak. If I hold off to the fifth date, things are going to be different. Well, you already know, because you told me last time, and then I want to switch to another topic, but you told me last time, a man knows in the first 45 seconds if she's going to sleep with a man. Well, let me give you a little bit of insight. So does a woman. So you already know. So why are you waiting? First date, second date, third, if you want to get fourth date, fifth date. Oh, on the fifth date, I wait till 5 dates. And I literally have talked to so many women who have rules. I'm not really a believer in rules. I believe you go with how you feel and what you can handle after. If you know that if you sleep with a man and on the first night and he may not call you and you're not okay with it, then don't do it.
Yeah, that's a bigger thing for me, Kathlyn. I don't care what your time frame is. It's the reason for your time frame. If your time frame is just personal, you should take as long as you want. No one should ever pressure you into having sex. My reason for the problem with the concept is because of the belief that somehow that's going to ensure or guarantee something going down the road. And that's what I'm saying is absurd. Your time frame, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, don't care. But the belief that somehow waiting is going to help is just absurd.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying and actually confirming, whatever research I have done, or I don't want to say research, but men that I've talked to. Sorry about my dog barking in the background.
Okay.
It is COVID-19. We're locked up, and she's barking at someone she can't see. So I have another topic I want to touch on, if you're okay with that. Do you have a little bit more time, or?
Sure, I'm fine.
Okay. Another topic that comes up a lot. Well, I'm trying to actually choose between a couple different topics, but let me just move to the internet dating. Okay. So, and this happens over and over and over. I hear my friends talking about this. I wish I could stop her.
Your puppy loves you. It's okay.
My puppy loves me. She's protecting me. You meet online, you like each other's profile, you start to exchange a little bit of information here and there. Sometimes there's a phone number exchanged, and then maybe there's some text. Hold on 1 second, I'm gonna pause this. Sadie, okay, I don't know what I just did.
Oh, it's still recording.
Is it? Like, I can't see you.
Oh, that I can't help you with.
Okay.
I'm right here.
Okay, so it's still recording. So let me just go to basic, advanced. Okay, I don't know what I just did.
Well, is your video clicked off the bottom down there?
Everything's still recording, so I'll just have them cut it out, so it's fine. But she needs to stop. So anyway, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back to my question.
Yes. Internet dating.
Yeah. So with internet dating, and I've heard this discussion come up multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
We're online and we meet, we like each other's profiles, send messages back and forth, maybe simple, maybe a little bit more complex. Then you've taken the next step, you've graduated to exchanging phone numbers. Mm-hmm. Now you're texting or having a phone call. And how long, Well, let me just tell you where I'm coming from. So I
Sure.
have, if I don't need a pen pal. You know, I'm a grown woman. After a
Correct.
certain amount of time of texting back and forth, I'm bored, I'm done. Call me. If you don't call me, you know what? I'm already done because we're grown-ups and we can pick up the phone and have a conversation, even
Mhm.
if it's quick. In fact, I won't even meet somebody if they haven't picked up the phone to call me.
With you all the way so far.
And but what happens a lot of the time that I've seen with a lot of my women friends, my
Mhm.
girlfriends, is a little bit different than me. I'm done. I'm moving on. I will not incessantly text
Mhm.
you and have no conversation and no plans for meeting up.
Mhm.
But what happens a lot of the time is the women become impatient and they ask the man to meet. Well, when can we meet? Should we meet? Can we go to dinner? Can we have a drink? Let's go on a hike. Let's go do something. And how, as a man, now you've had that conversation, that back and forth conversation, and maybe you've even talked on the phone, but you have not yet asked the woman out. How do you feel about a woman asking you to meet? I wouldn't say out, but for even a meet.
It would never happen with me. That whole construct would never occur. If we're going to start this with the premise that this is an online, what I call connection engagement.
Mhm.
So you find each other on an online app, on an app. So you find each other electronically, that these two human beings exist in the world. You've seen it, I've seen it, I swipe, you swipe, bing. I'm going to text you for about, chances are, 5 or 6 exchanges tops. I'm going to ask you if you have an interest in having a conversation. If the answer is no, have a nice life. If the answer is yes, here's my number. Text me and let me know when you'd like to speak. And we are going to have a conversation. And in that conversation, because pictures and profiles mean nothing to me until I hear your voice, until I hear you answer some of the things that I will ask you. Because while it's not in person, at least I can hear the intonation of how you answer. I can hear some of what I call your humanity. And so, based on that phone call, I will always be a gentleman and get off that call. And if based on that call I am not interested, I will inform her, hey, listen, I really enjoyed that. I'm not really sure that we're a match, but don't want to waste anybody's time. Take care. And or on that phone call, during that phone call, I will say, I would love to meet you in person. And my thing is always, and you don't have to wait for me to ask. I will ask. And I will always try and meet somebody at their preference of location. I'll come to your area of town. It can be during the day, whatever makes you feel safe. I don't give a crap. But I will never get to having a female have to be impatient to ask me out. That will never occur because I simply don't function that way. Now we would have made those mistakes maybe when we're younger, but to make those mistakes after you're 30 or 35 is you've never really learned yourself. Because I'm not going to waste your time, Kathlyn. I'm not going to waste somebody's time sitting around wondering. I'm just not doing it. It's a waste of my time. And I'm actually extremely sensitive. I'm a Pisces, and I don't want to sit around feeling bad about it. I'm just simply going to let you be. So the whole concept of people talking about being ghosted, yeah, I don't ever do that to people. And also, I love how honest women want people to be. No, you don't. Human beings want to be lied to all the time. I'm just not a liar. So I'm going to hurt your feelings for 15 seconds, and we're both going to be able to move on.
When you say
Um,
lied to all the time, would you provide an example of what you're talking about?
Meaning that people communicate with deception constantly, especially in this area with regards to interest or non-interest. I'm just too old. I'm not doing it. If I know that there's not something there for me to move forward with based on talking to you, I'm not going to ask you out. If I think it's 50-50, happy to. But again, what I'm saying is you said your girlfriends get impatient and so then they ask the guy out. Well, that's unfortunately that reality is a guy who I would skip if I were a woman because he isn't being a man. He's afraid to just be direct and honest. And if you don't see that as a problem before you start dating somebody, I assure you'll be a problem in your relationship. That's
So
why
what,
my book's about dating. It doesn't cover anything about the actual relationship. It goes from stranger to monogamy and stops. That's all my book's about.
yeah, I can't wait for your book to be out, Kevin. And I hear what you're saying, and I believe you. Now, a lot of the men that I interviewed have no problem with ghosting.
Oh, it's disgusting to me.
No
I have
problem with
no,
ghosting.
yeah, hate it.
Right. And I have no respect for any man that ghosts. Now, if somebody, oh, and then they come back later on, the ghost rises from the dead or what have you, and all of a sudden something
Yes.
maybe didn't work out or they're in a different space. Well, okay, so I didn't forget that. That shows who you are. And, but and maybe I'm wrong, but what I've seen, from talking to men and talking to women and my own experiences, that if a man's doesn't have anything else going on, but they're not really that into you, they'll string you along. They'll maybe say a good morning, beautiful in the morning, and then they'll maybe send a good night, sweet dreams, but they won't pick up the phone and call, and they won't actually ask you out. And this is the type of person that I'm talking about that's very frequent, believe it or not, on online dating, that women kind of hold on. Well, you text.
And that's why, but that's why they do it.
What's the reason why?
That's why they do it. Well, there's three factors. And again, when I speak on things, I'm not discussing 100%. I'm just giving you what I call a high percentage generalization. Okay. The reason why is this just in, Kathlyn, for as much as we want to talk about not waiting to have sex or whatever, the bottom line is it is difficult to get a woman to take her clothes off. This is not an easy prospect. I love how people sit around in their lives and talk about how easy, being a man and hooking up is. That's horse manure. I'm not the prettiest guy on the planet. I'm not the ugliest. I'm a relatively good conversationalist and I'm medium funny. But I can assure you, you guys are difficult. Getting you guys to make that decision is not something that's easy. And inherently, as we hear all these conversations in books all these years about how men can't change and women change too often, right? Those two dynamics between men and women in general. Well, a guy is a routine sort of dude. Men are lazy. And when it comes to this, they don't want to have to work that hard to have sex. So from an online standpoint, it's easier to have 5 or 6 possibilities and be able to tell from the texting how anxious, or as you said earlier about your friends, how impatient or desperate they're getting. And men are really not intelligent in certain ways when it comes to the depth of women, but they're intelligent enough to know when somebody is finally getting desperate enough to have some male company to finally then pull the trigger on, hey, let's go out, and time it just right if you guys keep hanging on long enough.
So that brings me to another question, something that you just said.
I'm so sorry.
It's the last one, I promise, then we're done.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
But, we're done for this time. If you're willing, I know the viewers love to hear you, I'm sure.
I hope they do.
I'm sure. And they're excited, I'm sure, for your upcoming book, which I am as well. So I'm trying to phrase this question effectively. Okay, so you're talking about a man who's texting multiple people or having conversations with multiple people because he's met multiple people online. And then he's seen the one that's desperate, kind of, maybe that's out.
Well, you get a sense of it, yeah.
Is he looking? Well, you said before that there is a radar. You know, when a woman's kind of like, you can feel that radar of a woman's kind of trying to lock someone in, the same way a woman feels that someone's trying to lock something in, like on a sexual side. And you can definitely feel it. You know, it's a unspoken language. But as far as texting, let's say a woman is looking for a relationship. Let's say you have 5 women that you're talking to. They all want a relationship ultimately. And you send the same text out to all of them, whatever it is. Maybe you say, good morning, beautiful.
Copy and paste, yeah.
Okay, yeah, copy and paste it to all of them. And one says, good morning, and one says, good morning, handsome, or you have different responses. Is there something in a text message that is more apt to draw a man in without making it look like you're just, I just want to jump in the sack with you? But is there a text message that can show interest without showing?
Yeah, interest is based on questions.
Yeah.
The questions that you ask say every single thing about who you are. So if you've read my profile and we've had a couple of conversations and we're in a text and you know a little bit about my life, then it is, good morning, whatever. But see, the other part, Kathlyn, is that's also from the man's end. That's how you can judge interest, is how interested or how much does he remember about your conversation. Good morning, beautiful. That's first of all, it's a country song. Good morning. That's a country song. But
I love you. Don't you know
so
that song? Yeah.
that's one thing. But again, you're defined by the questions that you asked. So again, texting's easy. I'm not a big advocate of texting dialogue. I personally can't stand it. Be there in 5 minutes. Here's the directions. Here's the link. I'm cool with that, but I'm not a big advocate of. And if somebody over 40 years old wants to constantly text like a 16-year-old girl in a mall, that's a turnoff for me. I'm done. Have a nice day. So we all have our what we call requirements, don't care, and compromisable. And the earlier in life you can learn those three, the better off you are. But you can judge a man's interest just as I can judge a woman's interest by how much she's retained in our conversations and how often I get a question about any of those things related to my life.
Okay.
Without being overtly emotional about it. But, women want to, unfortunately, a lot of times, men keep things very surface, and women, this is the emotional, physical part again. Women want to ask you a question about, how you feel about kids. Just using an example, or how you feel about, deep religion when you don't even know somebody. How about just asking me about one of my hobbies? Or at the end of the week, people jump over lots of ways in the electronic age in the last 2 decades. They skip over what we used to define as courtship. And I'm not, to the belief that courtship doesn't apply is BS. Courtship applies to 18-year-olds. You can call it something different, but it's still just the dance that men and men to men, or women to women to women, or men and women do in the process of arriving at kissing each other. It's a courtship. It doesn't matter whether it's 10 minutes long or 10 hours long. But the courtship part is why my book is just about dating, because this is part of it. And what women fail to look at is they think, well, what am I doing wrong? Well, I don't know. What have you asked him? Women was like, I can't believe that he deceived me. I don't know. What did you ask him? What did he answer? How much did you pay attention to it? How much did you add up 2 + 2 = 4? Once again, this goes back to desperation. We pretend we're getting information when we really aren't.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And I have to take a minute to think about that as you're talking. I'm thinking about so many different scenarios.
You're having flashbacks.
Well, no. Well, here's the thing. It's flip it around. Yeah. So I believe you call it courtship.
Yeah.
I just say the basics. And again, the men that I talk to, I have to say they were in agreement with you that, keep it light. Ask me here's why. Have you seen any good movies lately? What kind of movies they may like. Did you like them? What was your favorite? What did you think about it? Have you been to any concerts? Well, nobody's been to concerts lately. Have you listened to any music? What'd you listen to? Oh, what type of music are you into?
The first question is, what kind of music do you like?
But it's light, but it definitely is engaging, and you learn about that person. So what did you like about that movie? Oh, they can tell you a really deep story that how they related to that movie.
Sure.
And now it's just talking about a movie, and now you've related to them. And there is that tendency for women to want to jump to the serious, but to get to know somebody, kind of not waste their time. And again, it's not every woman, it's generally speaking, but I found that across the board. And men say keep it light, but I say as a woman, and I think you're agreeing with me, keep it light, but pay attention, because those questions are not superficial or surface level.
No.
What movie did you see? You already know what kind of movies they like. Maybe they're all of the same. Maybe they're all Westerns. Maybe they're all mysteries. Oh, which one was your favorite? And they tell you. What did you like about it? Well, it reminded me of when I was a kid, because I grew up back in,
But's not nowhere.
BFE and Tennessee. That rhymes.
That's
but
correct.
You know what I'm saying? So we really do.
It's a width versus a depth. I want to be honest with you, Kathlyn, that I will ask a lot of questions that are personal and are longer conversations, but I'm not demanding that you go to 10. I have no problem saying to somebody, yeah, I grew up with a mother and a sister, no father and brother. We grew up relatively poor. Now can be a deep conversation. We don't have to have the conversation now.
So
And that's part of the challenge with women is you crack something that's actually vulnerable, because that's the whole word. What men can't be is vulnerable. What women always want to be is vulnerable. There's your problem.
Wow.
Women are not immediately horny as all the time walking around. Yes, sometimes you are. You have your windows, absolutely. Men are all the time. This is the reason why I laugh. It's the biggest joke God ever played. But there's a difference between the width of the possibility of questions versus the depth. And that's why I said women push men emotionally and men push women physically. Because if I were to say I grew up with a mom and a sister, no father, no brother, the woman goes into, oh my God, what was that like for you? How did your mom get along? You and sister were friendly? Did you get along? What'd you guys do when she was gone? You start going with like 27 questions.
Forget
now all of a sudden you make me feel like I'm in therapy on date one. As opposed to just going, oh, cool. Okay. And I go, yeah, I was working at my mom's restaurant when I was 11. Cool. Oh, you worked in a restaurant. Cool. Like, what's your favorite dish? Like, instead of taking that restaurant moment and going back to something simple, there's always this desire to go deep dive. And that's a big difference. And unfortunately, men freak and go the complete other direction. And they're already basically sort of superficial on their face, because nothing in this world, is required of men to know themselves very well. It's just make money, be successful, and have some kids. And we're not ever told to learn about ourselves. So men wind up going the complete opposite and become more superficial, while the woman is becoming more deep dive on one question she got an answer out of. And within 15, 20 minutes, you guys are 17,000 miles apart.
Wow.
And not even 40 minutes in.
Wow. Okay. And I see that happens a lot. Let me ask you this question.
Yes, ma'am.
I call it the onion. I look at it, man.
Peel back the layers, right? We're going to pull back the layers.
Exactly. So you said that you grew up, okay, that's layer one of the onion. And I feel inside, it took me a while to get there, because I used to be that deep diver. Let me just keep dumping into the depths of your life on the first or second date. However, I felt like, years ago, I just learned, and it works for me, is, okay, so I don't want to show him I'm not interested by asking more, but I'm going to ask more later. And then later, maybe something will come up in regards, or there's something that relates to you growing up without a father, and just your mom and your sister. And then there's layer number 2. And then a little bit later down, then there's layer number 3. And what I have found is that at some point, the layers just expose themselves.
Correct.
And the onion blossoms, or whatever it does. And it's far more effective than trying to touch a man at that deep emotional level. Because like you said, that's not where you're touching a man on the deep emotional level, unless it happens organically over time. You want to talk about what I said, 100% of the men I talk to, keep it light.
Even if it happens organically right then, those are the areas where I'm just sharing with you that early on, those are things that should be left to the person. I tragically, and I know the same exists for you, Kathlyn, I tragically know at this point in my life far too many women who have been raped. I know far too many, especially with Me Too in the last 4 or 5 years. I've had more of my friends who are at least now more comfortable talking about what happened to them. And just to give you an example of someone who said, yeah, I left home pretty early. I had a pretty rough relationship with my father. And let's just imagine if a guy said, what, did he rape you? Just imagine a guy doing that on a first date, 20 minutes in. Now, you may be fairly comfortable discussing it. I just don't think it's an appropriate question, just based on the fact that you might have intimated a little bit. And women, very commonly, I think as a group, might be really offended at that. But while rape is a crime and it's a horrible thought, it's still something that goes too far past where we're at right now. And all I can tell you is women go too far past where you're at right now all the time with men. I'm just giving you a really harsh example of one that a guy could do to a gal that has nothing to do with having sex later. It's just, I don't know you well enough to be talking about that. Why the hell would you ask me that question? It's rude. Now, if a woman decides she wants to talk about it, which sometimes I've experienced a lot, the female gender can commonly want to go down far too far on again, depth. When I just met you, I don't recommend it a lot. I recommend a nice dabbling of a width of subject matter that's fairly short in depth, and you build your way down. Then there'll be a couple lanes that go further than others, and you have it. But again, a lot of this is based on expectation, and so some of it for women is based on safety. And again, you know, I'm got to be really careful when I say this. Men are really good liars, and I don't mean that the way we really mean it. When we talk about lying in life, it's lying in life. What I'm sharing with you is, like I said, a lot of when I talk to men, and I've been doing it for decades about this subject, I find most men. That's why my book is called what it is. What's the title of my book? Caveman and Cinderella. Because men are very remedial when it comes to you guys. They're not real in general. They're not real sharp about their own feelings and what they're doing. Just sex, right? Food, right? It's an old joke. So I'm just sharing with you that. But one thing men are very crystal clear about in a lot of ways is they know when to sometimes jump on something and when not to, because it helps you guys feel connected to us if we act like we care for a moment. Now, that's not an out and out lie, but it is a degree of being disingenuous. And to have you feel like, oh my God, it was so wonderful. We talked about this and he was very into it. Like, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But again, these are all just that's why I call the whole thing a dance. I just see a lot of men dance disingenuously because they want to get laid. And I see a lot of women dance out of fear because they don't want to be alone. And that's just a really, really, really bad combo.
Wow. Yeah, I know it is. You've shed so much light on these situations today. So I really appreciate, again, your candidness. It's you're helping these ladies out here that need to know.
It feels like I'm probably upsetting somebody, but
well, you know what? Here's the thing: you're being truthful to yourself and what you've learned and how you feel, just like I am. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But no, I think that you gave a lot of great information in regards to how the double standard, and then also about being too going too fast too soon in general. We talked about different areas of asking someone out, or phone calls,
sure.
or even the questions that you ask on a first date being wide versus deep, right?
Yeah. And I promise it's not just my personal experience, Kathlyn. Again, remember, I owned a company for 23 and a half years. I had 5,000 people come through that organization. And the performance profession is very personal. It's very intimate. A lot of people with a lot of difficulty up here say they want to be actors. And so I've consulted over 1,000 people, and a lot of those conversations became very personal. They weren't necessarily about acting anymore. And also, I've had a lot of female friends in my life that I didn't have sex with. Many of them, and I have listened, engaged, talked, questioned with, heard stories from. This is all not just based on my own personal experience, which is fairly long and fairly wide, yes, but I've also consulted a lot of people and listened to a lot of women throughout my entire life, I had said to me more than one time between the age of 20 and 25, wow, I can't believe I'm having this conversation. I barely even know you, and I've never talked to a man like that before. That's been going on since I was 20 years old because I ask questions. So I am sharing with the people watching that my feelings and my strong opinion are not just based on my own personal engagements. They also come along with not just the years, but the miles.
Well, Kevin, that's why I have you here, because you are an expert in more than one field, many fields. So thank you again for coming to the show. And I would like you to tell the viewers how they can get a hold of you.
I'm easy to find on social. I'm at the Kevin E. My website for my books is kevineus.com. And my email is kevin@kevineus.com. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Hello, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in to today's podcast, Swiping Over 40. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to my podcast channel. And ladies, I'm super excited because I do have a book coming out shortly, and it's titled Dating in a Fast Food World, The Girlfriend's Guide to Internet Dating, She Says, He Says. You're going to love it. It takes into account anything you can imagine that you might encounter while navigating through the online dating process. But not only does it have the, output from a woman, it has the input from a man as well. So you'll get the inside scoop. You can also subscribe to my newsletter by going to Kathlyn.com. I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you, and may you all find love.